Hi everyone, this is Sakshi. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm really excited to be hosting this conversation today. Full disclosure, this is my very first time hosting a podcast, but I'm so glad I have such wonderful guests with me. Today's topic is something really close to my heart, building on Shopify and the Shopify community. This isn't a sales pitch, it's just like a chance to share our stories, celebrate some wins, and really, get real about the challenges that we face as developers. So I'm joined today by an amazing lineup of people. We have Trudy and Anne, the brilliant duo behind Design Packs. Prakhar, the co-founder of FoxSell, and of course, like a super active contributor of the Shopify community. And lastly, but not the least, we have Aravind, VP of Engineering from my very own team at Swym. Now, Arvind's not just to give me backup, but like he is somebody who is known to play the devil's advocate all the time. And I hope that, his perspective will definitely help in this conversation. So let's just dive into it. And I'm going to roll out my very first question to all of you. So I want to understand, how did you get started as a Shopify developer, and what first drew you to your journey on Shopify and this community? So maybe we'll start with Trudy right here. Like, what was it that drew you into Shopify?
I'm not sure. So I think I learned in 2015. I started learning web development, and I was doing I a little bit of WordPress, some custom apps, and then I live in Toronto, where the one of the headquarters of Shopify is. So I knew a lot of developers who worked at Shopify, and me and my business partner at the time were like, maybe we should learn the Shopify thing. And so we spent like a week just learning app dev, just to figure it out, like just sort of play around with it. And then we spent some time learning theme dev. And then we started a blog called Code Shopify, just to like document our journey. And then eventually, I think within like a couple months, we're like, let's just do Shopify. So we kind of just started. There was no like really deep reason. It was just kind of like there. And it seemed like a fun thing to do.
Got it. So it just clicked and worked out for the best, I assume.
Yeah.
Great. Moving on, Prakhar, what about your journey?
My journey has been very conventional in the sense I graduated with computer science engineering, and then I worked at few jobs at proper tech companies, and then I stumbled upon met Shashank from Push Owl, had a chat with him, and then he told me about Push Owl, what they are doing, what the Shopify ecosystem is. Then I thought, okay, this looks like a pretty interesting opportunity. Let's just give it a shot. Give it a shot. It's actually pretty funny because I was giving out interviews in a lot of the companies, and I thought I'll just give an interview in Push Owl as well, just for experiences. Of course, I'm not going to join this, but then I had a conversation with Shashank and Abhishek, who was the CTO at the time. Shashank was the CEO, and then I thought, okay, this is something very interesting. And once I've gotten into the ecosystem, I've never looked back since. So after Push Owl, then we started FoxSell. So it's like it was supposed to be a detour, but in terms of just taking interview experiences, but then I've been there ever since.
Nice. I think everybody is, got lucky there. And do you have something that, you saw in Shopify and, this is where I want to develop, this is where I want to be?
Yeah, I have always been a content management system, like CMS nerd, I guess. So I my original thing that I studied at school was art history, so completely unrelated to any type of computer engineering, anything like that. But I had built a couple of websites in university, and then I ended up doing a sort of a postgraduate certificate. And this was back when Flash was really popular. So I did a lot of Flash sites. And then, yeah, I eventually got into CMS things, and because I'm more of a front end developer. And I built my first Shopify site off of the Timber framework. I don't know if I remember that back in the day. And from there, I was like, oh, Shopify is kind of interesting. But the main reason that I got really deep into it is more of funny enough, like a lifestyle thing. I was looking for a job that I could do remotely, and there was this website, We Work Remotely, and one of the theme companies had a job posting for a Shopify developer, and I was like, oh, I've built one site. I think I can do that. And so, yeah, from there, I got to go to a lot of the conferences that Shopify was holding and got to meet a lot of the partners within the ecosystem. And previously I had been more in, the WordPress or ModX kind of these CMS worlds, or just general front-end development. And I just found that the community was amazing. And I thought, oh, okay, this is something that I really want to be a part of. And so I was at that company for 4.5 years. And then since then, I just have really just enjoyed being part of Shopify. And thanks to Trudy, learning a bit more about more app backend and that kind of thing. There's just so many areas to explore. So that was my journey.
Pretty cool. I think you go way back, and I don't even know what Timber was back then. So Aravind definitely would have seen those days, and I saw him giving a nod. So Aravind, like, what about your journey, and like, were you also like just led on to Shopify, or like it just happened?
Yeah, so I'm always fascinated by startups, like doing something that's almost impossible, in the sense that you're not meant to exist by default, and that's always drawn me. And I think I joined Swym around 2015, and at that stage, we had my primary motive was to get closer to consumers, in the sense that I want to understand consumer behavior and I want to build for it in a way where I don't need to be visible, but yet the things that I build are used by millions and billions of people if possible. And Swym was a way to get to that. And I think we were at that stage completely focused on wherever the merchants are. And when I first joined, we only had Magento, and it was very, very tricky, and a lot more variables involved. In other words, and then in mid probably like April or like March, April 2016, we said, okay, Shopify feels like a quote unquote up and coming area where we can acquire a lot of the distribution. And then I think we're here in 2025, and Shopify becoming a big, if not the most important focus area, and not just because of I think the availability of merchants. Again, I think and Trudy and Prakhar specified, like the community and I think access to context, knowledge, and I think how open it is to customization and extensibility without really going through a lot of hoops. I think that enabled a lot of further investment. It's basically like the gift that keeps giving. And I think Timber was the JS framework. I think I'm not sure, but still some parts of it exist. Like it has a typo, right? Like TINDRE, if I'm not wrong. So those days aside, I think now we are in the space where being forefront of like what e-commerce in general can be, and then I think heading into like what commerce can be shaped up with all the lessons that I think we have learned over the last decade and a half with Shopify growing. I think that's what's exciting, and that's where the journey has led us so far.
Very interesting. I think from Magento and now to Shopify, I think it's like leaps and bounds have changed. But I think the value that Aravind said, that it's all about building for the customers, and that was like at the top of it. And I think I see that in all our stories, whether I see Design Pack, FoxSell, Swym. I think that's definitely how even Shopify is thinking about. They're thinking about their customers, their merchants, and like app partners, and always building for them. So moving on, I think Trudy Anne, like you both didn't really start out together on Shopify, is what I hear from the story. So how does it work now? Like you both are together, and like this partnership that you have. What challenges are like very easy to solve because Trudy has Anne and Anne has Trudy. Any specific challenges that you face with the Shopify ecosystem?
It always keeps you on your toes, that's for sure. It's, if I look back and think about when we first launched Design Packs and what we were doing, when we first launched, Sections Everywhere didn't exist. So if you put that in perspective in terms of how much the theme editor has changed since 2021, it's a huge amount. And Trudy can speak to how much things have changed from the first version of the app to now. A ton of things. So you always have to be constantly checking to see what is being released and what things are coming down the pipe. And yeah, Trudy, you should definitely talk about the different APIs you've had to deal with.
I mean, yeah, so we've just we just launched like in 2021, so not even that long ago. There's been at least 4 versions of Polaris that we've used. The entire way of doing authentication changed from cookies to sessions in that time. API changes. Everything's now moving from REST to GraphQL. GraphQL was always there, but it's like they weren't like maybe fully developed.
Yeah.
You had to still use REST for some things, but now GraphQL is like the default. Yeah, so many things have changed. It's so like such a short amount of time. It does keep you on your toes, but the new features are great too. Like I'm sure, and first now like we started when there was like not sections everywhere, then we got sections everywhere, which is kind of like theme 2.0, and now we're almost on theme 3.0 with the blocks. So we've had to change our underlying architecture as well, like how we do this, but then redo all of our sections, which Anne is I think enjoying right now. And then the new features in the visible if and all these new features in the theme editor are amazing. So it's great, but you have to keep up. Like you can't sit on your laurels.
But I know it's just you and Anne, like who have been behind like design packs from the beginning, taking care of marketing, sales, developing, taking care of customer support. How has that been? Like, how has this collaboration worked? And how has it even been possible? How has like a 2-person team gone ahead and supported, I think, over 10,000 merchants?
I think that's the cool thing about Shopify is that one thing that we don't really have to necessarily worry about is, certain things about security, but not like there's a lot of things that Shopify sort of helps with and takes care of. So I think that's kind of nice. And in terms of we just sort of divvy things up, and we both really like working on it. It's been I don't have a good answer for that. It's
I feel like one thing with Anne and I is like we don't work in the same city. We're close, so we'll meet once, but it's somewhat asynchronous. But I think one thing is we don't have big egos, so like I'll work on something and then just be like, okay, I did this, and then Anne will come back and be like, I completely changed it. I'm like, oh, it's better. And it's like sort of like that is fun about us, where we just like play around. Like it's more fun, so I think that's what keeps it up. And I have to say, because Anne worked in the theme space for so long, her focus is so much on making things so usable that our customer support is actually quite minimal, which is
wow.
Yeah, it's more them asking for, extra features or things that we haven't built yet. And we have to say, okay, we're adding it to the roadmap. But again, there are only 2 of us, so that makes it tricky. But I think we also, it's what Trudy said in terms of being able to, I think we like pass the ball back and forth. And it's nice because there's some things that I take care of completely, and there's other things that Trudy takes care of completely, and then there's other things that we collaborate on together. So
that's amazing. I think it's really inspiring for everybody who's trying to get there and get started. I think you don't need too many people for that. And that also takes me to Prakhar, because I know, Prakhar, your team is around, I think, 4 people, if I'm not wrong. And what you tell me is that you lean very heavily on the Shopify's native stack. So what is that one tool on Shopify, that has made your life easier? And, a team like yours, which is lean, it makes their life easier.
Yeah. So I've been a backend engineer all my life before I started my own product. So I did not like working with mostly front end. So the great thing when I started building an app was Polaris, where I did not have to write any amount of CSS, and the components were just out of the box. That made my life, in the beginning at least, a lot easier, of course. Then I had to ramp up a lot of stuff on the front end side of things. And one thing that completely baffles me about Shopify ecosystem is that you can support millions and millions of people with your product with absolutely close to none infra. because everything can be powered by Shopify. Like for example, our app, how many ever customers we are supporting, the brands customers, uh, we are using meta fields, meta objects, Shopify functions, app blocks, admin blocks, those kind of things. So literally no call from the storefront side comes to our servers, and that's essentially a really great thing in a sense for us small companies, because in order to handle that kind of traffic you need to have like some kind of infrastructure to handle all those things. But Shopify makes it possible for everyone and anyone and everyone to actually build stuff that's actually really scalable, because everything, the hard work is actually being done by Shopify. So that is something that really helps us, and that is why I don't use I don't say I just use this particular thing. I have just completely named it a Shopify tech stack where everything is on Shopify most. So whenever we are trying to build a new feature, we try to first see how can we explore the native technologies of Shopify, how can we use those things first, and then we think about, okay, do we need external infrastructure for this kind of a thing to build. So yeah, that's how it has made our life easier.
Makes sense. I think building for Shopify, I think you just build for Shopify and not for multiple things, and I think it works best. I'd agree. But have you seen any hurdles that you encountered, like just building for Shopify and you were restricted because of the way Shopify's infra works?
Yeah, I think that happens a lot of times, where you run into a lot of limitations when you're working with Shopify. But I think it's like a trade-off you can decide. Like for example, if you're working with Shopify functions, Polaris, meta fields, and meta objects, if you have to go on to another platform, you have to literally build everything from scratch, because the other platform neither has meta field, meta objects, functions, everything. So essentially, this is something that you have to decide very early on when you're building something, and you need to be okay with, if you decide to change your decision of migrating or basically supporting new platforms, it has to be a huge change, and it's not going to be a one day change with just new platform, new authentication system. So that is there. With theme app extensions, of course, there are like a lot of limitations with the block settings and number of blocks one theme app extension can has. I'm sure Anne and Trudy knows more about that with their product blocks app. So there are a lot of limitations, but of course, like you can, once you deep dive into some of those, you realize why those there are, why are those limitations are there in the first place, and then you try to navigate around it or something. But essentially, most of the things are being handled without any major roadblocks, and if there are any major roadblocks, you have to find workarounds. That's it.
Got it. So I think the advantage of building just for Shopify with Shopify's native stack is far higher than like the pitfalls or the hurdles that you face.
Yeah, I think even
Makes
in the
sense.
past, when we were on multiple platforms, when we were building in Pushal, we saw that most of the traffic and most of the profits, most of the revenue is coming just from Shopify. Essentially, we saw recently with Judge Me as well, they shut down their product on other platforms apart from Shopify. So I think there is like a some common understanding among these people as well, that just building for Shopify has far more advantage than basically being more flexible and building for multiple platforms. So I think, yeah, that's my learning has been as well.
Got it. And now I'm going to take to something like Arvind. Arvind, you've been a developer. You are leading a team of like 20 developers, and we're all building on Shopify together. What are your challenges that you face day in and day out on building on Shopify with a larger team, and how has the journey been for you?
Got it. So first up, I have to do one auto correction. I think Timber has not RE, because that's an audio processing framework, and Timber was like the Shopify one.
Okay.
It was going to be out there. Have to make the record straight. But anyway, so coming to your question, I think I'm going back to history a little bit before I get to the current. So I think in general, as and when software came into business software, in the sense of the realm of like powering businesses, it's always about customizability and extensibility of how the software works with what I think each business requires. And each business unique aspects are not the generalized aspects, but the 20% or the 10% or the 5% that's different from the rest. And I think the way that is being delivered has evolved over the decades. Like even if we go back to 80s or like the mainframe era, and then the Microsoft shrink wrap software era, and then the internet, not internet cloud, but internet hosted applications, then the cloud, and now I think the cloud has gone back to the platform itself. So I think what's exciting about building with Shopify and non-Shopify is that they're bringing back the fundamental concepts of extensibility without the all the overhead of like developer experience being pretty bad, testability, stability of the system, and scalability. I think they've just like made sure those fundamental blocks are completely scalable, the principles being the same over decades. Now I think they made it like super simple for any person to enter and build something of value and actually let it iterate and learn from it rather than have too many blocks. For example, I think the notion of a meta field that and a meta object that Prakhar was referring to, I think that has probably existed ever since I think like a database existed and a database software existed. So I think how Shopify is doing it is what I think is super cool, and I think pushes everybody else in the same space to think, yeah, like we have to like up our game to enable other people to build on us. Otherwise, like it's going to be tricky for me as like if I'm like a builder that's like competing in Shopify. It's very tricky because I am not just working with like my team. Like Shopify is not working with their team. Shopify is working with like everybody that's like building on Shopify, and that's like a hard mountain to climb unless you have your fundamental principles in terms of developer experience sorted out. And as part of that, I think coming to Swym, I think we are probably sort of unique out of the situation where I think we have like double-digit number and double-digit number trending in terms of team size more than 50, and that's I think a product of how I think we have thought about it, and I think investing into like different areas. So coming down to like I think from building and like now I think letting that actually expand into like multiple folks. I think as an individual developer, I think it's like like Trudy said, I think what problem presents, whatever solution the particular problem needs, go and use that and then scale that. And when it comes to a team, I think there are some specializations and some depth areas, meaning I think everybody needs to be broad, but some people need to be deep on some particular area. It's basically like I'll say like a T kind of an area is what I think majority of the Shopify expertise needs to be. Like I think there is, I mean like a Shopify tech stack that Prakhar referred. There's the front end, the back end, the middleware, the data, the webhooks, and anything that's like analytical versus like AI. All of those are depth areas, but the core common construct is the Shopify, API stack of like understanding scopes, understanding like how APIs in general work, and how you get it to work in coordination. I think is the biggest challenge I think we have across, and there is a sense of like repetition, repetitive effort, and repetitive context. But I think that's part of the plan, not like not something that's like counter to the plan. So the better I think we have a very solid shared context that allows each individual to go deeper. I think that's the primary challenge that we are setting to solve for. And coming down to I think the how we have approached it. I think the Shopify centered approach I think has to lead a lot of our decision making, and then I think anything that's an offset of another platform or needing to support a merchant that really wants same capability, that is where I think being able to use the shared context and then extrapolate it for like a non-Shopify platform is something that I think will keep evolving. But I think the competition is like very going to find very hard to compete against Shopify, and the amount of feedback that Shopify gets from like the developer community, I think that itself like a huge roadmap that adds like miles between the competition and Shopify.
Yeah, I think definitely agree there, Aravind. I think being there myself, I have seen. I didn't work with Shopify before. I think 2020 or 2022, and like now in these 3 years, it's been like a journey. And I think there needs to be that depth area, but I think Shopify as a platform makes it very easy for you to grab and take the opportunity and build something. So that's definitely well said. So I'm going to go to something very different. I'm going to go to like partnerships and collaborations because that happens quite a bit here in Shopify, and everybody is cheering everybody on, and that's what I love about this community. Trudy, and it's been a pleasure working on the design packs integration with you folks, and it's been a very fun collaboration for me personally. But what is it for you? Like, what is the outcome that you think that such collaborations drive for design packs, and what gets you excited? And if you want to drop any hints about the upcoming collaboration, please feel free to do so as well.
I love doing collaborations because I feel like sometimes we get requests for things that just would take us away from our core principle of what we're doing with design packs. And so, like, I think people don't, like, merchants don't necessarily always understand. They're like, oh, can you just make a bundles app, or could you make a wish list or whatever? But that's like a whole thing into itself and sort of takes us away. So then I think doing collaborations allow us to offer these options with the design flexibility that people like in design packs. So, doing a integration with Prakhar on FoxSell bundles, and the Swym one is very exciting because it's fun to see like more functionality or more sort of different features that we can give our customers without actually having to do the building ourselves, which would just take us away. It would be too much for us, especially just as the two of us.
Yeah. It's sort of, in a way, it's almost like a little microcosm of what Shopify itself does, where they know that they can't build in certain native features, so they rely on partners to do it and then, add to the platform. So in a way, we're almost doing the same thing where we know we can't build that into design packs. So instead, we rely on other partners and kind of come together and build these types of integrations. And I know I'm so thankful for Trudy is really the one that spearheads the integrations, because she is such a builder. She just loves to build things. So I think that's something that a lot of people in the Shopify ecosystem share as well. So it's really cool to see when people just want to come together, work on interesting things, and build them as a unit, as opposed to, oh, we're all competitors and, all this sort of that kind of attitude. So, yeah.
Pretty cool. I think definitely. I think the joy that you get out of building and like collaborating, you learn from each other, and the idea exchanges that happen. I think there's another joy to that. Moving on, I think Aravind, like we have, I don't know how many integrations I lose count, but like what are some of the challenges that you faced with these collaborations and integrations, like from like say 2015 to now?
Got it. So I think the scope of how I think integrations in general, I think the competitiveness versus like I think the collaborativeness, especially in the Shopify land, I think the pie is so huge that sure, I think competition is like good for business in any case, and I think when collaboration is seen as as an aspect of I think being like a healthy ecosystem, and I think allowing for that actually to really happen, I think that's been very very, I'll say, on the up and rising way, where I think it's easier to integrate. It's easier to present ourselves into like other partners' pages, as well as like the same on our end as well, right? So that has I think been very, I'll say, more community driven, in the sense that I think the humans behind it are showing that like it's not just I think the business aspect of it. I think there is like more to win by like joining forces than actually like competing and like going perpendicularly at each other. And I think the amount of I think I'll say complexity that was there in integrations with Shopify actually being like a broker of like both the distribution and like acquisition engine. I think it makes it simpler for like just like nuts and bolts are just figuring out like how we work with each other, not how the merchant has to figure it out. I think that's like a very powerful story to have, and that's something that I think has evolved like to a much more simpler time than it was there back in the 2010s. And I think the scope of I think what comprises an integration, what comprises a partnership, I think that is just up to the imagination of the people collaborating and like showcasing it. And at the end of the day, I think the merchant wins, which is what I think we're all here for. And that is the biggest joy to see. Okay, a merchant wants it. They have it. Like, yes, I think they have to use XYZ, but through some way or the other way, we are hitting and helping them to succeed in that. And that I think is a super joyful feeling that drives sort of a lot of collaboration.
Perfect. Yeah, I think couldn't agree more. And Prakhar, I think when I think of you as somebody who's like the flag bearer of community events, because I've seen you wherever I see there is an event happening, I see Prakhar there. And from you attending something like Editions and to now you organizing ShopQuest this year, like what has that experience been like? It's like even a collaboration there. I think bringing people together. What is it that that led you to have ShopQuest and take on such a big responsibility?
No, I think it has always been in the DNA of Shopify, and I think Shopify community also does it really well, where it's always like give more than you take. So it's in Shopify's DNA, and we also try to emulate it as well. The idea of ShopQuest is like when we go to editions, there are so many events that happens in Canada, the US, in Europe as well. But there's so many apps and so many agencies who are building like really cool stuff from this part of the world as well. So like Pagefly and those kind of really big apps in Vietnam that are there, really big apps in India like Swym, Push, all those kind of apps. So, but we wanted people to also give a reason to meet these kind of people, these kind of folks on this side of the world. So that is why we also want to do something where people would want to travel to India or basically this side of the part of the globe to attend and meet all of those people who are building some cool stuff. And the other thing that I almost faced a lot of times when I used to go to software events or SaaS events, that whenever you tell them what you are building in a software ecosystem, for them it feels like it's like a very small thing that you're building. But when you're in the Shopify ecosystem, people really understands you, people really know your terminology, people know what challenges you're going through. So it's basically your kind of people. So getting all of those kind of people under a single roof is something that what we are trying to build. And that is the idea of ShopQuest. That is what we did last year, and that is what we are planning to do this year as well. Basically understanding the challenges, sharing learnings, and getting same like-minded people under one roof, so we can just talk to each other, and if we have any frustration, just take it out on people who understand those frustrations. If we have any happiness to share, we can share those happiness with people who understand that.
Yeah,
We're
and
very excited for that.
I'll add one thing. I think Prakhar, I'm not sure if I assume that there's a lot of credit that goes to Prakhar and Aditya, because I think this was before Shopify Editions was like officially announced last year, the February event, if I'm not wrong, in India, in Bangalore,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So I
Yeah.
assume that a lot of the events that the editions that happened, that's primarily because I think one of the triggers was this event. And they're saying, okay, it's actually, there's a big demand for people wanting to meet with each other, and Shopify bringing it back. I think that's one for sure signal from this event that happened last year.
Yeah, but credit where credit is due. Like that event was like completely triggered by Swym, the first ever event that we did last year on the Feb one, where Aravind was kind enough, Harshdeep was kind enough to actually do something, and we were just because we were having it in here in Bangalore where we are located, it became easier for us to manage the logistics. But like huge credit to like all of you guys to push it, support it, and came up with the idea as well.
I think it's all like a collaboration, Prakhar. I think the effort that it takes to organize something like that, I think it's not easy, and definitely all the credit is due to you and your team for that. And I think, yeah, like you said, right, back in India, we don't have anything, and getting people here and getting everybody the opportunity and the chance to interact with this ecosystem, I think, yeah, that's meaningful. That's what makes it all worth your while, right? So I think, yeah, just like I think community just keeps giving is what I've seen here. And I haven't seen a community like this before and been in different spaces, but this is special, in its kind. And yeah, I think we've talked a bit about collaboration and community, but the world is evolving now. And I'd like to talk about something that everybody talks about, the cliche, that is AI, and how it is changing everything right now, like how we code, design, and even support our merchants today. So I'd like to understand from some of you, how has AI changed the way you are building on Shopify, and what do you think is the next big opportunity that is coming up in this ecosystem because of AI, or any threats that you see that are coming in because of AI?
I think Anne has the most experience in it. She actually gave a
Yeah,
talk.
definitely.
I mean, I think it's one of those things where it's just everywhere now. Even things you think that you're not using AI for, all of a sudden you are. I mean, I actually want to hear Sakshi your thoughts on this, because I know you're using it a ton. So I'm actually gonna. I will say, yes, we do use a lot of AI. I use it a lot for like our settings to make sure they're consistent, all that kind of stuff. But I want to throw it over to you if that's okay, to hear how you're using it.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely okay. So at Swim, I think we've literally stopped, I think, a month or 1.5 month back. We took a pause and we're like, everything's changing. We can't keep developing the way we are developing anymore and still keep up with everything that's going on. So literally, we divided ourselves into cohorts and just to get around whatever we're doing today, how can we, do it with the help of AI and make our lives easier and, being able to multiply yourself. Like, I think for Swim, how AI is working best today is like, I know we're not a small company, but the idea is that one person should be able to do at least 5 things at a time. And that's what is helping. I think everywhere, right? Like from Copilot, we're trying to use Devin almost like a junior software engineer so that we don't have to hire anymore. We are trying to use Anytime to run like workflows for customer support for our product and whatnot. And like I think Sum is even trying, like we're going to be trying to get our MCP server out there. I think it's like all of this is like pretty experimental at this time, but I think the place where it has impacted the most is like our product and our customer support team. Because now with the support of AI, they have a lot more control over what they can achieve themselves. Like as developers, we know how to code, we know how to like solve our things. Might take a little more time. And with tools like Copilot, Devin, or Lovable and things like that, now a product manager or say a customer support engineer, they're able to actually take their ideas or the issues that they're facing to production, and that too like within like record time. I've seen like features going live within a day, and I think it's just unreal. I think what Swim's just trying to do is like every time we think, okay, this is like the conventional way to solve it, we try to take a step back and think, if I have to not like if I have to solve this again and I have to redo this, how can I best support myself such that I build a framework today for the future. So I would say we've taken a little like pause, and we're like rethinking all our processes, right from like even designing stuff to actually production, like taking things out to production. But Arvind, I think he's been a flag bearer of it as well. If you have something to add on to, please do.
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. I think the notion of AI, coming for us, I think it's more like we have to take it. I think uh, it's just the so what I think are tools available to us in this day and age, and we need to figure out how to best leverage it without like hurting ourselves or doing it in a way where we don't really understand the tool. I think that's been the fundamental principle, and coming down to I think the specifics. It's just like all the verbs that we operate like do, like for example, we build, we operate, we excel, we serve, we support. All of those functions needs to be having a layer of intelligence, be it AI, be it human, be it like any sort of I'll say the delight that can be offered during that process, and do it in a way. I think now it's very very sustainable is another aspect of it, in the sense that by adding AI, it doesn't mean that like the number of people I think working on a particular problem basically reduces. No, I think it enables us to go after more problems and do it without really like burning like 24 hours a day every day. Every day of the week is completely unsustainable, and that's what I think AI specific approach is like. We're looking at Swim is like how do we get a like sustainable way of execution without losing focus on like things that we actually want to go after. And I think the specific tools that I think are again like flavors of the month kind of a thing, because every week there is like a huge iteration or a huge release that completely like dismantles any other system or any other process that you set up. So I think that's the other muscle to grow, is like being able to switch and like jump as much as possible without really like committing too much into like a particular toolkit or particular API mode. Instead, be agile to use those tools, because the goal is not to like make the tool grow, but to use the tool to grow ourselves, has been the other principle. And I think the other aspect, I think betting big on like Copilot in terms of being starting from like asking questions to being able to answer questions and to write code, review code, test code, and also deploy code, take screenshots, monitor the code. All are things that are like running in iteration, in the sense that 3 months later, if you ask me like what we have today, is it going to survive? May not. For probably 99% is not going to survive. So we're going to like stick to the 1% that's going to stick, meaning focusing on what's going to be true, independent of like what's coming our way or changes our way, is what I think our driving principle is. And in that route, we will find out I think what are essentials that we will have to have a very persistent answer for that. I'm not sure if I covered a lot of the content. Maybe a little, any of the details I can share with you.
Yeah, I think this will be like a whole session of its own. I think there's so much to talk
Yeah.
about in this context that we definitely can't cover. But any last thoughts from you, Prakhar, on this, and then we will start wrapping it all up.
Yeah, I think there are two facets of AI. One is how we use it in our daily life and how we use it on ourselves, and the second part is how do we integrate it into our products. Like we all are running a product, right? So first part, it's how do we use it in our personal life, our daily life. Is like it has, from where I see it, whatever we dreaded the most, it's actually making things a lot easier on those fronts. So for example, we as an engineer, we don't like marketing, don't like writing up a lot of documents, those kind of things is something that have been streamlined a lot now. And writing test cases, those kind of things, basically having a startup code where we can start working on it. Of course, it's not 100% there, but if you ask it to generate something, it would get you, like, even if it gets you 50 to 60% there, that's a win. So that has been insanely helpful in writing content, in writing, training the AI in your personas, in your voices, so that it sounds like you, so that it you can get it to do a lot of the stuff the way you would have done. So that takes out a lot of the effort from that side. And the second part is integrating onto the product. How do you add it to increase your acquisition, make the merchant experience better, make your partner experience better, all of those kind of things. So we are figuring out the second step. First step is the first part. We are actually relying heavily on a lot of the tools. That is one thing we do. We do demo day at the end of every month in our company, and we just have a metric there, like how much of the work was done by AI and where are the some cool places that we got to use AI. So for example, one time, like, one of our people created the presentation using AI, so that was like one cool thing. So the idea is like just to adapt more and more AI as much as you can, because it's not a competition, it's more of a friend, it's more of a something that would
Yeah.
help you do your job better, and those kind of things. So yeah, and second part where you have to integrate it into the product, or that is where we are thinking more in terms of how we uh, make it in a way where it enhances the experience of the merchants, it enhances the experience of the partners by using MCP or those kind of things, and then adding it to as a feature set where you are able to take actions using AI insights or AI suggestions, those kind of things. Because one thing that I personally think with AI is, like, people are really comfortable with doing that AI doing 90% of their work, but they still want to take the final decision. Like, you
Yeah.
can see all the shoes that you like, AI can tell you all the shoes, but they want to make the payment and click on buy now. They are yet not comfortable with AI buying the shoes for them without their consent. So that is the thing that we are right now thinking in this direction.
Um, I
Pretty
just want to
interesting.
add one thing that building on Shopify is also great because for us, we already have AI integrated into our sections because we're just pulling the
Yeah.
AI block from Shopify. So that's another plus of just building on Shopify. Is you get these things sort of out of the box.
I remember it was live at Editions, and I think you even used it during your hackathon or some that you participate in for Horizon team. That was like amazing. I think that's been record speed. I don't know if any other app had done it by then. Pretty cool. Okay, so I know we are a little late on time, so I'm going to try to wrap things up. I just want like one last thing from you is like any advice that you folks have for anybody who's just starting out in Shopify as a founder, as a developer, or just trying to explore. So what would your advice be about developing in Shopify today? So maybe we start with Trudy. She's right here. So yeah.
Oh, I mean, there's so many things. Obviously, well, the docs are really good, and now they have like an AI assistant in the docs, which I'm finding extremely helpful. Just So that's one thing, but also get involved with the community, because I think being able to ask people about their experiences, and like everybody's so friendly that it's very valuable. I think that's the most valuable part of Shopify, like building on Shopify.
Agree. Agree. That's how I have you all here, because talking to you all has got you here on the podcast. Awesome. Prakhar, from you, anything that you'd like to give advice to folks joining in?
Yeah, I always say today is the second best time to build on Shopify. The best time was yesterday. So I think it's the way Shopify is doing a lot of things. Like you have to, it takes away a lot of the effort from your end. And you just have to learn a lot of the things of how Shopify does it. It's a little slightly different than how an engineer would do certain things, but how would you do things on Shopify? So I think there is no right way of learning it. Just figure out like what you're building. The great thing is like there are infinite possibilities of what you can build on Shopify as a developer. You can be a theme developer, build just the storefront experiences. You can be an app developer, just build apps, and there are like insane amount of things that you can do. So just figure out what you want to do. I don't think there's anyone in Shopify who knows everything in Shopify. We are just helping each other out, trying to solve each other problems and learning new things. So yeah, I think just figure out what you want to build and then go in that direction. I think it's pretty easy to build things in Shopify now with the MCPs and AI, that those things coming in. Have your fundamentals in programming very clear and then just figure out what you want to build, and I think that's a great start.
Awesome. And anything from you?
Yeah, I think that now is such an exciting time to be an entrepreneur, specifically in the Shopify space. One thing that I would recommend for people that are looking to get into whether it's theme or app development is to try, if you're coming from a developer angle, talk to merchants. So maybe do some work for family, friends, anyone that you know that has a Shopify store, because once you really get talking to merchants, you start to understand the struggles that they specifically are having. So, don't look at the app store and say, oh, I'm going to just create a similar app and do some different features. Talk directly to merchants, because what you'll find is sometimes there's niche problems that they're trying to solve that you can build specifically for them, but then you'll find other people also have those issues. So yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Perfect. I think that's some great advice. Aravind, from you?
Sure, I've never built anything on my own, so I'll probably be inside out kind of person. So I think what's true is I think the 2020-ish COVID time, I think versus now, the world is completely different. I think the landscape is completely different, and understanding what differentiates the value you produce, and what it's what you're doing it for, driving the actions, more the why you want to do it. I think focusing on that, I think, is like critical, because the what can be figured out, how you can figure out with a lot of the toolings and pure determination. But why you want to do it, I think, as long as I think that is like pretty solid, I think this is a great time to go after. Especially in the Shopify ecosystem, it's a great time to both build and get expertise on, because I don't know what the 2026 is going to even look like. So, which is exciting, scary, but truly exciting to see. I think what kind of apps and products evolve in the newer landscape.
Yeah, I think this has been quite a chat with all of you, and that's been some really good advice. I hope people use it. And thank you so much for sharing your stories and your time today. It's been a really fun conversation.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much,
Sakshi.
Sakshi, for having
Yeah.
all of us. It was really nice, and we didn't get to hear what advice you would give to people who are
Thanks,
coming
Prakhar.
into the ecosystem.
Yeah, I think my biggest advice to anybody on Shopify is that, today, it's very easy to get started. I don't think it's like the technicality is the difficulty. I think what you're building for is what you should focus on, because it's very easy to build something today. And I think the differentiation comes from how you're thinking about who you're building for. I think Anne said it very well. Think about the merchants, talk to some merchants and then build for them. I think the Shopify does a fabulous job about providing the tools and technology. So one should not fear that they don't have the right, experience or knowledge about a tool or a technology. I think what one should probably do is just build for the merchants, and I think Shopify will find a way to solve it for you. I don't think you need to know a lot of coding or a lot of technical expertise today. Shopify really makes it very easy to develop today, and I think that's what makes it so special. Yeah. Okay, that's about it then. Thank you.